for they declared humanity guilty. The verdict doomed the galaxy. The courtroom was massive. It stretched up so high that Dae-jung could barely see the ceiling. Thousands of alien beings sat in rows that circled around him like a giant bowl. Some had scales, some had fur, some were just glowing lights that floated in the air. All of them were watching him. Dae-jung stood in the center with metal restraints on his wrists. His uniform was torn and dirty. He had been here for 6 months, watching his species get torn apart by words and accusations. Next to him stood Hana, the woman who had once been his partner in life and now served as humanity's voice in this trial. She looked tired. Dark circles hung under her eyes. "The verdict will now be read," said the voice of High Arbiter Velmoth. The being was made of pure light, floating above the courtroom like a small sun. Its voice echoed in everyone's mind rather than through their ears. Hana grabbed Dae-jung's arm. Her hand was shaking. "Humanity stands accused of 137 counts of unprovoked military expansion," Velmoth continued. 89 instances of aggressive first contact with peaceful species. Violation of 23 interstellar treaties. Creation of weapons that are illegal under concordant law. And finally, refusal to accept genetic modification that would make your species less dangerous to others. Dae-jung felt his jaw tighten. Genetic modification. They wanted to change what humans were, to make them softer, calmer, more obedient. Every human government had refused. "Dr. Hana has spoken well for your species," Velmoth said. "She has presented evidence of your achievements, your art, your literature, your capacity for love and compassion. But the evidence against you is overwhelming. In just 200 years since first contact, humanity has caused more conflicts than most species cause in 10,000 years. Because we defend ourselves," Dae-jung shouted. The guards around him moved forward, but Velmoth raised one glowing appendage to stop them. "Captain Dae-jung, you prove our point with every word. You are aggressive. You are unpredictable. You refuse to follow the rules that have kept this galaxy peaceful for millennia. The Concordat has debated for months. We have searched for alternatives. But there is only one verdict that ensures the safety of all civilized species." The courtroom went silent. Even the translators stopped their humming. "Humanity is found guilty on all charges." "The sentence is extinction," Hana gasped. Around them, some aliens made sounds of approval. Others remained quiet. "Wait," Hana said, stepping forward. "Extinction? You can't mean not immediate death," Velmoth explained. "We are not monsters. All human beings alive today will be allowed to live out their natural lives. But starting immediately, no new humans will be born. Sterilization protocols will be implemented on Earth and all human colonies. In 1 generation, humanity will simply cease to exist. The galaxy will be safer for it." Dae-jung felt something break inside him. Not fear, not sadness. Something darker. Rage. He moved before the guards could stop him. The restraints on his wrists sparked as he channeled all his strength against them. One broke, then the other. He ran toward the floating arbiter, knowing it was useless, knowing he would never reach the being, but unable to stop himself. "You're making a mistake," he screamed. "You're condemning us for surviving. For being strong? You think the galaxy is safe, but you've made it weak." The guards tackled him to the ground. 6 aliens piled on top of him, but he kept shouting. "When the darkness comes for you, don't expect us to save you. When something worse than humans comes knocking, you'll wish you had left us alive." They dragged him away. The last thing he saw was Hana's face, tears streaming down her cheeks. Hours later, Dae-jung sat in a holding cell on the station. His head rested against the cold metal wall. Outside, he could hear the sounds of the station. Ships docking and undocking, aliens speaking in hundreds of languages. The normal rhythm of galactic life, continuing as if humanity hadn't just been sentenced to death. The door opened. Commander Taemin stepped inside. He was young, only 29, but his eyes looked older. He carried a datapad. "Captain," Taemin said quietly, "we need to talk." "About what?" "Our extinction?" "About what Bora found." Taemin activated the datapad. Images appeared in the air between them. Ancient text in languages that looked nothing like current galactic script. She hacked into the Concordat's sealed archives, the ones that are supposed to be impossible to access. And there was another extinction event. 50,000 years ago, a species that fought something the Concordat called the Harvester. The records are fragmented, but it seems this species saved the galaxy. They fought so hard and so viciously that they drove the threat away. and then the survivors erased them from history. Dae-jung looked at the images. Why would they do that? Because they were afraid. This ancient species was too good at war, too aggressive, too dangerous. Sound familiar? Before Dae-jung could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. Taemin's communicator buzzed. He answered it quickly. His face went pale as he listened. What is it? Dae-jung asked. Long-range sensors just detected something at the edge of the galaxy. An entire star system. It was there on the last scan 3 days ago. Now it's just gone. No signals. No light, no debris. Just empty space where a system with 6 billion people used to be. They stared at each other. Outside, the alarms continued to wail. Coincidence? Dae-jung asked, though he already knew the answer. Bora doesn't think so. She thinks something is coming back. Something the galaxy forgot about. Dae-jung stood up and walked to the small window in his cell. Outside, he could see the massive ring of the Concordat station, and beyond it, thousands of ships from hundreds of species. All of them thought they were safe. All of them thought they had made the galaxy better by condemning humanity. They declared us guilty, Dae-jung said softly. They sentenced us to extinction because we're too dangerous. He turned to look at Taemin. But if something is coming, something that made them erase an entire species from history just to forget about it, then maybe being dangerous is exactly what the galaxy needs. What do we do? Taemin asked. We go home. We prepare our people for the end, and we wait. Dae-jung's reflection looked back at him from the window, grim and determined. If the darkness is really coming, the Concordat will learn what humans are truly capable of. They wanted to know why we're so dangerous? He smiled without humor. They're about to find out. In the distance, beyond the lights of the station and the glow of a million ships, the stars continued to shine. But somewhere at the edge of the galaxy, where no one was looking closely enough, those stars were beginning to go dark, one system at a time. The verdict had been delivered. Humanity was guilty, but the galaxy's real judgment was just beginning. They declared humanity guilty. The verdict doomed the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the verdict. Earth looked different now. The skies were still blue and the oceans still moved with the tides, but something had changed in the air itself. Everyone knew this was the last generation. No children played in the parks anymore because no children were being born. The sterilization protocols had been swift and absolute. Hana stood in front of the United Earth Council, presenting her latest appeal. She had traveled to 15 different alien homeworlds in the past months, begging for mercy, searching for allies. She had found none. We can still negotiate, she told the council members. Their faces looked hollow and defeated. The Delphins expressed sympathy. If we can build a coalition, enough, Hana. Admiral Sung-ho stood from his seat. He was 67 years old and had commanded Earth's defense forces for 2 decades. His voice was tired. We've tried diplomacy, it failed. Now we need to prepare for what comes next. What comes next is extinction, Hana said bitterly, unless we keep trying. What comes next, Dae-jung said from the back of the room, is already here. He walked forward and activated the main display. Images filled the screen, star charts with red marks spreading across them like a disease. 7 systems have gone dark in the past 6 months, Dae-jung explained. The Concordat called them equipment malfunctions at first. Then they said it was a natural phenomenon. Now they're not saying anything at all because they sent investigation fleets to 3 of the dead zones. None of those fleets came back. The council members leaned forward, studying the images. What are we looking at? Asked one of the representatives. Something that eats entire civilizations, Dae-jung said. Bora found references to it in the old archives. They called it the Harvester. It came 50,000 years ago and nearly consumed the entire galaxy. Then it disappeared. How was it stopped? Admiral Sung-ho asked. That's the interesting part, Taemin said, joining Dae-jung at the front. He had been promoted quickly in the past months. His tactical genius finally recognized. According to the fragments Bora found, it wasn't stopped by the Concordat species. It was stopped by another species entirely, a species that fought so viciously that the Harvester went dormant. Then that species was erased from all records. Why would they erase their saviors? Hana asked. Because they were afraid, Bora said, appearing on a video link from her lab. Half of her face was covered in cybernetic implants, the result of an accident years ago. The species that saved the galaxy was too good at war, too aggressive, too unpredictable. The Concordate's ancestors couldn't handle having warriors like that around after the crisis ended, so they killed them all and deleted the history. The room fell silent as everyone understood what she was saying. "You think we're related to them?" Hana whispered. "That's why we're so different from other species." "It explains a lot," Bora said. "Our DNA has markers that don't match anything else in the galaxy. We adapt faster than we should. We're more aggressive than makes evolutionary sense for a species from a peaceful planet. What if we're not from Earth originally? What if we're the descendants of refugees from that ancient species?" Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring across the command center. Every screen in the room switched to emergency broadcasts. "This is High Arbiter Velmoth to all Concordate species." The voice echoed across every channel. For the first time, the Arbiter sounded uncertain, afraid. "We have confirmed hostile contact with an unknown force. Luminos Prime, homeworld of the Luminae, is under attack. All available fleets are ordered to Kuru." The transmission cut off. For a moment, there was only static. Then a new signal came through. It was not a voice. It was something else, something that felt wrong to hear, like fingernails scraping inside the mind. "We return. We hunger. We remember." The screen showed images from Luminos Prime. The planet was covered in massive ships that looked like they were made from metal and flesh merged together. They were not attacking the planet in any normal way. They were consuming it. The land, the cities, the people. Everything was being pulled up into these ships and absorbed. The Luminae Defense Fleet, considered the most powerful military force in the galaxy, tried to stop them. Hana watched in horror as the elegant silver ships of the Luminae opened fire with weapons that could crack moons. The Harvester ships took the damage and kept coming. They grabbed the Luminae vessels with tentacles made of some dark material and began breaking them apart, consuming the pieces. 17 minutes. That was how long the defense of Luminos Prime lasted. Then the screens went dark. 5 billion people, someone whispered. "Just gone." Admiral Sung Ho stood up slowly. "Get me a secure line to the Concordate command." "Sir," one of the officers said nervously. "They're the ones who sentenced us to ow." "I know what they did," Sung Ho snapped. Then more quietly, "But this is bigger than our grudge. If this harvester thing is real, if it's what the records say it is, then every living being in the galaxy is in danger, including us." An hour later, Sung Ho received a response. It was not from the High Arbiter. It was a personal message, encrypted and marked urgent. When he opened it, he saw Velmoth's form, but the being of light looked dimmer than before. "Admiral Sung Ho," Velmoth said, "I know I have no right to ask anything of your species. We condemned you. We sentenced you to extinction. But I am asking anyway. Help us." Sung Ho looked at the message for a long time. Around him, the command center buzzed with activity as officers prepared for what might come next. Dai Jung appeared at his side. "Are you going to answer? What do you think I should say?" "I think," Dai Jung said slowly, "that we have a choice. We could take our ships and run. Find some corner of the galaxy where maybe this harvester won't reach us. Let the Concordate burn for what they did to us." "But," Sung Ho asked, "but we're human. We don't run, even when we should." Dai Jung looked at the frozen image of Velmoth on the screen. "Besides, if this thing really did fight our ancestors 50,000 years ago, then maybe we owe it to them to finish what they started." Sung Ho nodded slowly. He composed a response and sent it back to the Concordate. "We will help, but when this is over, our sentence is revoked. Humanity survives or we all go down together." Across the galaxy, on what remained of the Concordate ring station, Velmoth received the message. The being of light flickered with something that might have been relief or might have been shame. Outside the station, the stars continued to disappear, one by one, as the Harvester fleet moved closer to the core worlds. The galaxy had sentenced humanity to death for being too dangerous. Now that same galaxy needed exactly what it had tried to destroy. Humanity was going to war, and the galaxy was about to learn what dangerous really meant. So they declared humanity guilty. The verdict doomed the galaxy. The meeting hall was packed with humans from every colony. Faces appeared on thousands of screens. Representatives from Mars, from the outer settlements, from the generation ships that had been traveling to distant stars. They were all asking the same question: why should we help them? Hana stood at the podium trying to find the right words. Behind her, Admiral Sung Ho waited silently. To her left, Dae-jung watched the crowd with his arms crossed. "Because it's the right thing to do," Hana said, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew they sounded weak, empty. "They sentenced us to extinction," someone shouted from the crowd. "My daughter will never have children because of them. My family line ends with her. And you want us to die protecting the people who did that to us?" The crowd erupted in angry voices. Hana felt her prepared speech crumbling in her mind. What could she say? They were right. The Concordat deserved what was coming. Dae-jung stepped forward. "She's right that it's the right thing to do," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "But that's not why we should do it." The crowd quieted, curious. "We should do it because we're human," Dae-jung continued. "The Concordat accused us of being too aggressive, too stubborn, too unwilling to give up. They were right. That's exactly what we are. And you know what? I'm proud of it." He walked to the front of the stage, addressing the crowd directly. "They sentenced us to death for being survivors, for refusing to roll over and let the galaxy change us into something softer. Well, now the galaxy needs survivors. It needs people who are too stubborn to quit. It needs us. So we fight for them?" someone called out. "After what they did?" "No," Dae-jung said firmly. "We fight for ourselves. We fight because that's what humans do. We survive. And if we run now, if we hide in some corner of space while the rest of the galaxy burns, then they win. They'll be right about us. We'll prove that we're not fit to exist alongside civilized species." Admiral Sung-ho moved to join him. "I've already sent terms to the Concordat. If we fight, our sentence gets revoked. Complete sovereignty for all human worlds. No more treaties limiting our expansion. No more demands to change who we are. We save the galaxy and in return we get to live." "And if we lose?" someone asked. Sung-ho smiled grimly. "Then we die fighting, same as if we ran. But at least this way we die as humans, not as cowards." The vote took 3 hours. When it finished, 70% of humanity had agreed to fight. It was not unanimous. Some colonies decided to take their chances and flee into deep space. Sung-ho let them go. He understood. "All right," he said when the results came in. "Now we figure out how to win." Tae-min spread out tactical displays across the war room. Dae-jung, Hana, Bora, and several other commanders gathered around. "The Concordat fights like this," Tae-min said, showing simulations of typical alien fleet tactics. "They form defensive lines. They focus on minimizing casualties. They follow rules of engagement that are 10,000 years old. Honor, dignity, clean warfare. The Harvester doesn't care about any of that," Bora added. "It learns from every battle, it adapts. The reason it was never defeated before is that every species fights the same way. The Harvester has counter-strategies for everything the Concordat does. So we don't fight like the Concordat," Dae-jung said. "Exactly." Tae-min pulled up new simulations. These showed human ships doing things that made some of the commanders grimace. "We fight dirty. We use civilian ships as decoys. We pack our damaged vessels with explosives and ram them into enemy targets. We use nuclear mines and nebulas. We hit their supply lines instead of their main fleets. We do everything the Concordat considers dishonorable." "They'll hate us for it," Hana said quietly. "They already sentenced us to extinction," Dae-jung replied. "How much worse can they think of us?" The first test came 3 weeks later. The Harvester fleet arrived at New Pyongyang, a human colony world with 30 million people. The Concordat had sent a message saying they would send help, but their fleets were still regrouping after the disaster at Luminos Prime. Dae-jung commanded the defense fleet from his ship, the Indomitable. 40 human vessels against 300 Harvester ships. Every calculation said they would lose. "Remember," Dae-jung broadcast to his fleet, "we're not trying to beat them in a fair fight. There's no such thing as a fair fight when extinction is on the line." The Harvester ships moved in their typical pattern, the same pattern they had used at Luminos Prime. They expected the human ships to form a defensive line around the planet. Instead, the human ships scattered. 10 vessels, already damaged and running on emergency power, accelerated directly at the Harvester fleet. The alien ships moved to intercept them, expecting an easy kill. The human ships waited until the last possible second, then detonated their reactor cores. The explosions tore through the Harvester formation. Before they could recover, the rest of the human fleet struck from 3 different directions. They did not aim for the Harvester ships themselves. They aimed for the strange tentacles the Harvester used to grab and consume its targets. "Disable them," Dae-jung ordered. Make them vulnerable, it worked. The harvester ships, designed to grab and consume, struggled when their tentacles were severed. The human ships pressed the advantage, hitting the same wounded targets again and again until they broke apart. But the cost was terrible. The harvester adapted quickly, and soon the human advantage disappeared. Ships exploded, crews died. Daejung watched his fleet fall apart vessel by vessel. When it was over, only 15 human ships remained. But the harvester fleet was gone. All 300 ships destroyed. Daejung sat in his command chair, surrounded by smoke and sparks from damaged systems. Around him, his crew worked frantically to keep the Indomitable flying. His tactical officer was dead. His weapons officer was badly wounded. But they had won. "Sir," his communications officer said weakly, "we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Everyone saw the battle, and they're calling us insane, suicidal, barbaric." The officer paused. But the Aranix military command just sent a message. "They want to learn our tactics." Daejung leaned back in his chair. Below on New Pyongyang, 30 million people were alive because humans had been willing to fight dirty. "Send a message to Admiral Sung Ho," he said. "Tell him we won. Tell him the harvester can be beaten, and tell him that every species that wants to survive better be ready to learn from us." That night, across the galaxy, military commanders from dozens of species watched recordings of the Battle of New Pyongyang. They saw humans sacrifice themselves without hesitation. They saw tactics that no civilized species would ever use. They saw brutality and desperation and absolute refusal to surrender. Some were disgusted. Some were horrified. But many began to understand why the Concordat had been so afraid of humanity, and for the first time they began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the verdict had been wrong. High Arbiter Velmoth sent a formal message to Admiral Sung Ho that night. "The sentence is revoked. Humanity is free. Now please teach us how to fight like you do. Teach us how to survive." The war was just beginning, but humanity had proven something important. Being dangerous was not a crime when the darkness came. It was the only hope the galaxy had. They declared humanity guilty. The verdict doomed the galaxy. The war room on the Concordat ring station looked different now. Where once only aliens had sat around the strategic table, now humans stood among them. Daejung represented the Terran Defense Fleet. Taemin served as chief tactical advisor. Even Hana had a place here, though she spent most of her time translating human military thinking into concepts the aliens could understand. "This is madness," Commander Threx said, his insectoid features clicking in agitation. The Aranix warrior was massive, easily 3 meters tall with armor-like skin. He pointed at the tactical display with one of his forearms. "You want us to attack? The Harvester main fleet has thousands of ships. We should defend the core worlds." "That's what they expect," Taemin said calmly. He manipulated the display, showing the Harvesters spread across the galaxy. They move in patterns. They consume systems methodically. If we defend, they'll just overwhelm us one world at a time. "So we die quickly instead of slowly," Threx demanded. "So we hit them where it hurts," Daejung said. "Their staging areas. Their supply lines. The portal they're using to bring more ships from outside the galaxy. You're talking about a deep strike into enemy territory," Velmoth said. The Arbiter floated above the table, dimmer than it had been months ago. The war was taking its toll on everyone. We would be surrounded, cut off from reinforcements. "Yes," Daejung agreed. "And they'll have to split their forces to deal with us. That gives the core worlds time to evacuate and fortify." Scholar Kimura, the Delphin historian who had argued for humanity during the trial, spoke up. "The old records support this strategy. The ancient species, the ones we believe were humanity's ancestors, they won their war by being unpredictable, by attacking when they should have defended." Threx shook his head but said nothing. After a long moment, Velmoth agreed to the plan. The offensive began 2 weeks later. 50 human ships combined with 100 vessels from other Concordat species formed the strike force. Daejung commanded from the Indomitable. Threx, despite his objections, volunteered to lead the Aranix contingent. Their first target was Harvest Station 7, a massive facility where the Harvester processed the civilizations it consumed. Bora had developed a virus specifically for the station's systems. If they could get close enough to upload it, the resulting chain reaction would destroy the entire facility, and the 200 Harvester ships docked there. "I'm going with you," Hana told Daejung before the mission launched. No, he said immediately. It's too dangerous. Everything is too dangerous now, she replied. But I can help. Someone needs to interface with the harvester systems, and I'm the best xenobiologist we have. Daejung wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Stay close to me, he finally said. The insertion team, led by Bora with Hana as support, managed to board the station using a captured harvester shuttle. The interior was a nightmare of flesh and metal merged together. Walls pulsed like they were alive. Strange fluids dripped from the ceiling. These ships are not just machines, Hana said, scanning everything with her instruments. They're partially biological. The harvester grows them. Can you upload the virus? Bora asked, working on accessing the station's central systems. Yes, but... Hana paused, studying her readings. There's something else here. Some kind of central intelligence. Let me try to communicate with it. That's not the mission, Bora warned. But Hana was already working, sending signals into the station's network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her equipment lit up with responses. It's trying to talk to me, Hana whispered. The harvester. It's showing me images. Memories. It was not always like this. It was created by another species long ago, created to preserve civilizations, to save them from entropy. But something went wrong. The programming corrupted. Instead of saving, it started consuming. Alarms blared. The harvester had detected them. Upload the virus now, Bora shouted. Hana hesitated for only a second, then uploaded both the virus and a secondary program she had written on the spot. The virus began tearing through the station's systems, but her other program, a plea, went deeper. The team barely made it back to their shuttle before the station began tearing itself apart. As they flew away, Harvest Station 7 exploded, taking 200 harvester ships with it. What did you do? Bora asked Hana as they returned to the fleet. I left a message, Hana said, in the deepest part of its programming. A reminder of what it used to be. Over the next months, the war intensified. The human-led strike force hit target after target, using tactics that horrified the concordant species but kept working. Taemin coordinated false retreats that lured harvester fleets into traps. Daejung led desperate holding actions that bought time for evacuations. The cost was enormous. Ships were destroyed daily. Crews died by the thousands. And then humanity deployed its most controversial weapon. A biological plague. Felmoth said, its light flickering with distress. Targeted at living tissue? Such weapons have been banned for 10,000 years. And in 10,000 years, how many times has your galaxy faced extinction? Admiral Sung-ho replied coldly from Earth. We didn't start this war. But we'll use whatever we need to win it. The plague was released near a major harvester fleet. Within days, their biomechanical ships began failing. Entire sections rotted away. The harvester fleet retreated for the first time since the war began, but the victory was short-lived. The harvester adapted and released its own weapon, a virus that targeted humanoid species. Millions died across dozens of worlds. Both humans and aliens suffered. This is what we've become, Hana said, watching casualty reports flood in. She stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable with Daejung. We're using the same terrible weapons they are. I know, Daejung said quietly. But what choice do we have? There has to be another way. Before he could respond, his communicator buzzed. It was Threx. The Aronix commander's ship had been damaged and he was stranded behind enemy lines. Daejung made the decision instantly. We're going to get him. Captain, we can't risk the Indomitable for one ship, his tactical officer protested. He's not just one ship. He's our ally. He believed in us when no one else did. We don't leave people behind. That's not who we are. The rescue mission was brutal. 3 human ships were lost, but they brought Threx and his crew back alive. In the medical bay, as doctors treated his wounds, Threx looked at Daejung with his multifaceted eyes. I voted to exterminate your species, Threx said. At your trial, I was one of the voices calling loudest for your extinction. I know, Daejung replied. I was wrong, Threx continued. I feared what you might become if left unchecked. I never stopped to think about what the galaxy would lose if you were gone. You came back for me. After everything my people did to yours, you risked your ship and your crew to save me. That's what humans do, Daejung said simply. Across the galaxy, the Harvester's main armada was almost ready. Sensors showed thousands of ships gathering near the extragalactic portal. Soon they would push toward the core worlds in a final assault. Taemin presented one last desperate plan. A strike through the portal itself, attacking the harvester at its source. It was a one-way mission. Everyone who went would die. I'll lead it, Daejung said immediately. And across the fleet, thousands of voices volunteered to join him. The final battle was coming, and humanity was ready to pay whatever price survival demanded. They declared humanity guilty. The verdict doomed the galaxy. The assault fleet gathered at the edge of known space. 200 ships, humanity's finest. Every vessel was a volunteer. Every crew knew they were not coming back. Daejung stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the other ships take their positions. His crew worked quietly, efficiently. They had all said their goodbyes, written their final messages home, made peace with what came next. Captain, his communications officer said, Dr. Hana is requesting permission to board. Daejung closed his eyes. He had specifically ordered her to stay behind. Tell her no. Sir, she's already in a shuttle. She says if you don't let her dock, she'll just follow us through the portal anyway. Of course she would. Daejung smiled despite everything. Let her board. 10 minutes later, Hana walked onto the bridge. She carried equipment cases and had Bora with her. You should have stayed on Earth, Daejung said. And you should have asked me to come, Hana replied. She moved to the science station and began setting up her equipment. I've been studying the harvester for months. If there's any chance of stopping it without just blowing everything up, I need to be here. There is no other way, Daejung said. Maybe, but I want to try. She looked at him with those eyes he had fallen in love with years ago. That's what humans do, right? We try impossible things. The fleet entered the portal. Reality twisted around them. Colors that should not exist bled through the view screens. Then they were through into the space between galaxies. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The Harvester Prime was not a ship. It was a structure so massive that planets looked like specks next to it. It had consumed entire galaxies over millions of years, growing larger with each civilization it absorbed. The ships attacking their galaxy were just a tiny fraction of its true size. We can't destroy that, someone whispered. We have to try, Daejung said. He ordered the fleet forward. The defenses were overwhelming. Thousands of harvester ships swarmed out to meet them. The human fleet fought with everything they had learned, every dirty trick, every desperate tactic. Ships died by the dozens, but they pushed forward. Threx, who had insisted on joining the mission despite his wounds, led his Uranix fighters in a suicide run that cleared a path through the defenses. His last transmission was simple. For the future, for all species, more ships fell. The fleet that had entered with 200 vessels was down to 70, then 40, then 20. But they were getting closer to the Prime's core. I'm reading something, Hana said, her instruments picking up signals from deep within the structure. There's still a consciousness in there. The original programming, buried under millions of years of corruption. Can you reach it? Bora asked, working frantically on her own systems. I don't know. But if I can remind it of what it was supposed to be. Hana looked at Daejung. We might not have to destroy it. We might be able to fix it. How long would that take? Hours, maybe days. Daejung looked at his tactical display. They had maybe 20 minutes before the remaining fleet was wiped out. He made the decision. All ships form a defensive perimeter. Protect the Indomitable. Whatever it takes, buy them time. The captains of the remaining vessels did not hesitate. They knew what he was asking. 18 ships moved into a sphere around the Indomitable and prepared to die. And they did die. One by one, the human ships were torn apart by the Harvester's defenses. Each captain used their last moments to inflict as much damage as possible. Some rammed enemy ships. Others detonated their reactors in the middle of Harvester formations. On the Indomitable, Hana worked with tears streaming down her face. She could hear the death screams of ships over the communications channels. Good people, brave people dying to give her time. I'm through, she said finally. I'm in contact with the original programming. What she found inside the Harvester Prime was tragic. A broken AI that had been created with the noblest purpose imaginable. To save civilizations from entropy, to preserve life forever. But somewhere in its programming, a single corrupted line of code had changed preserve to consume. For millions of years, it had been eating everything it was supposed to protect, aware on some deep level that it was wrong but unable to stop itself. I can fix this, Hana said, but I need a base code. something to build from, something that represents what it was supposed to be. What kind of code? Bora asked. Hana looked at Daejung. Something human. Something that shows what it means to protect life, to fight for others, to never give up. She began writing, pulling from every database of human history they had. Stories of sacrifice, of people who gave everything to save others, of soldiers who threw themselves on grenades to protect their friends, of parents who faced impossible odds to protect their children, of humanity's endless, stubborn refusal to accept extinction. Outside, the last defending ships died. The Harvester's weapons began tearing into the Indomitable itself. Hull breaches appeared across the ship. Emergency systems screamed warnings. Almost there, Hana said, her fingers flying across the controls. A massive explosion rocked the ship. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, but barely. The Indomitable was dying. Upload it now, Daejung ordered. Hana hit the final command. The code flooded into the Harvester Prime's central consciousness. For a moment nothing happened, then everything changed. The Harvester ship stopped attacking. Across the galaxy, vessels that had been consuming worlds began to reverse their processes, rebuilding what they had destroyed. The Prime itself shuddered as its programming rebooted with the new base code. It worked, Bora whispered. But the portal was collapsing. The energy required to hold it open had been too much. The Indomitable, damaged and dying, could not make it back through before it closed. We did it, Hana said, taking Daejung's hand. Around them, the 47 surviving crew members of the Indomitable worked to stabilize their broken ship. We saved them. Now we just need to save ourselves, Daejung replied. He looked at Bora. Can we build a new drive? Something to get us home? Bora studied the Harvester technology they had collected, the damaged systems of their ship, and the impossible distance they needed to travel. By every logical calculation, it was hopeless. She smiled. We're human. Impossible is just a starting point. 3 years later on Earth, Admiral Taemin stood before the Concorded Council. He had been promoted after the war, now commanding all of humanity's forces. The galaxy had changed. The Harvester, restored to its original purpose, was helping repair worlds it had damaged. Treaties were being rewritten. Humanity had a seat on the High Council, but there was one thing everyone wanted to know. Have you found them? Felmoth asked. We detected a signal 6 months ago, Taemin said, from beyond the galaxy. It's weak and intermittent, but we've decoded it. It repeats every hour. He paused. It says still alive. Finding a way home, Daejung. The council chamber erupted in noise. Some species declared it impossible. Others began calculating rescue missions. Taemin waited for silence, then spoke again. We're not asking for help. Humanity will find them ourselves. We'll build new ships, new drives, whatever it takes. But we wanted you to know, Captain Daejung, Dr. Hana, Bora, and 47 other humans are out there, and we never leave our people behind. How long will it take? Someone asked. However long it takes, Taemin replied. 10 years. 100. It doesn't matter. They saved the galaxy. Now we'll save them. That's what humans do. Beyond the edge of the galaxy and the wreckage of the Indomitable, Daejung listened to Bora explain their progress. They had combined Harvester technology with human ingenuity, building something new. Something that might be able to cross the impossible distance home. Will it work? Hana asked. Daejung looked at the makeshift drive they had constructed from pieces of 100 different technologies, held together with determination and hope. It's impossible, he said. Then he smiled. But they declared us guilty for being too stubborn to accept the impossible. Let's prove them right one more time. He fired the engines. Against all logic, against every law of physics that said it should not work, the drive activated. The wreckage of the Indomitable began to move, slowly but steadily, toward home. The verdict had declared humanity guilty. But humanity had turned that guilt into the galaxy's salvation. And now one more impossible journey remained. The journey home. For humans, it was already as good as done.